So about 6 months ago, I was on Joyce Ming's channel, and we, the panel of ESTPs, got asked about education and how we would change it if we could have input on the education system in America. Uh, and after my answer, which we'll watch in a second, but after I gave my answer, there was a comment or a question in the comments asking me what I thought about homeschooling. So that's what I want to answer in this video is the question about homeschooling. Better late than never. But first, let's take a look at the video clip that of my original answer, because that'll tee up the second part where I answer the question.
If you could have input regarding education, especially kindergarten to grade 8, and coming from your experience as ESTPs, what would it be?
I would restructure the whole system. I think that if you look at how school is set up now, and you shove kids into a desk for 8 hours a day, teaching them the menial shit that they don't need to know and aren't interested in the most boring way possible. I think that you take people at the most curious and interactive age of their life, and you squash the curiosity out of them. I think that it's damn close to abusive, in my opinion. I also don't like a lot of what they're teaching. My daughter's in middle school. I think social emotional learning is garbage. Schools are way too meddly in people's lives and worldview, and I think I think that there are definitely good teachers in it for the right reason. But I think that once you get to the institutional level, it's hard to say that schools are for any reason except to train people to follow orders, show up on time, and do what they're told to do. So it's not really there to teach people to be good thinkers or to teach them valuable information. It's there to mold them into useful cogs in the system. So I'm pretty much not happy with school at all right now. I'd change the whole thing, and I do think definitely how to do a budget, finances is a huge thing that people aren't taught but should be. And I think that if people really wanted to teach kids to understand the world around them, they'd learn economics and they'd learn psychology, because those are the two things that get weaponized against the whole world because nobody knows
Yep.
shit about it.
Welcome to the seventh attempt to record this video. Yes, the seventh. Which is probably higher than most of your fourth graders are learning how to count in public school, but we'll get there. We'll either get there in this take, or this video is not getting made, and I'm gonna have to hide a body. All right. So I'm all for homeschooling. I'm a big fan of it. Participant in it. I was homeschooled in grade school. My daughter was homeschooled for only 1 year. 1.5. Sort of 1.5, because the COVID thing sort of threw things weird. That's what threw us into it. And then when they restarted school, we decided to just keep her out for a year, not because we were concerned about her immune system, which is just fine on its own, but because we were concerned about neuroticism. So we homeschooled her that first year back, and she's in 7th grade now, and I tell her regularly, I let her make the choice, right? Do you want to be homeschooled or do you want to go to school? She's choosing school, of course. 12-year-old girl, that's where her friends are at, her peers. No surprise there. And I pay attention to her, and she is able to think above it or around it or through it, or at least able to fake it well enough to convince me, which means that she can fake it well enough to probably make it in the real world. But yeah, I tell her regularly that anytime she wants to homeschool again, let me know. We'll do it. But for now, unfortunately, school is where the kids are. that social interaction, in my opinion, is the only good thing that school has to offer kids. It doesn't help them learn valuable information. Um, we can all think back to the stuff we learned in school and recognize that most of it was just memorizing menial, boring shit that we'd never use. And we still don't use it to this day. What you do learn and take away and use for the rest of your life through the Prussian school, the Prussian education system. That's what we have. We have a Prussian education system, which is you go, you sit with people your own age, and you learn and memorize and repeat and regurgitate. It's very boring. It's exhausting. It's not useful. It's basically an indoctrination or a brainwash program, right? You're told what the answer is. You're told what the answer is. You're told what the answer is. You have to remember. You do this for 8 hours a day from the time you're 5 until the time you're 18. Then you have homework at night to do it more. And then you're tested on how well you have remembered what you've been told. At almost no point are these students encouraged to solve problems, to figure things out, to use their own observations, unless there's senses, unless it is to observe what they've been told to observe. There's no figuring things out on your own. Students are not being trained to think critically, to problem solve. We're not training up thinking adults, which we can all see in the world around us every day. And it's getting worse. So, no, school is often confused for education, but if we're being honest with ourselves, I think everybody can recognize the fact that the things that you learned, your education, your life lessons, the knowledge that has been useful, it's all come basically outside of school. Now, maybe if you've gone to college, if you're a doctor, you went to med school, obviously you're probably using that, right? That's not a waste of time. I would argue that it's a garbage education and still indoctrination, because you're basically an arm of the marketing department for Big Pharma. But nevertheless, that those years of school are being put to use. Grade school, not so. We take kids are natural, like I mentioned in the video that I clipped. Kids are already curious. They're already automatically in learn mode. That's how they come out of the womb. It's not until schools get a hold of them that they stop being curious. They stop wanting to learn. And I would argue that that's not by accident. In fact, the Prussian education system, it's not by accident. The whole thing is built around training up good, compliant students. I'm sorry, not students, citizens. You respect authority, you do what you're told, you show up on time. The real takeaways from our education system is schedule, be on time, do what you're supposed to do, respect authority. It's structured, it's scheduled. The individual is not encouraged to not only is it not encouraged to think, they're not encouraged to really have any individual identity or interests, right? It's your own personal interests, the things that you find interesting or unique, whatever it is. The education system doesn't foster that. It squashes it. So, No, I'm not a fan of public schools. Yes, I am definitely a fan of homeschooling. Um, and even if it's, even though my daughter's going to school now, um, I I leverage all of the days that I can get her out of school, skip school. She skips school as much as I think that I can get away with, which is a decent amount because she's got good grades. School's not hard for her, and that's one of the things that we learned homeschooling her is that even following a curriculum, you can get a whole school day worth of work done in about half the time. There's a ton of time at school that's not spent learning. It's spent herding kids around, getting the class clown to shut up, getting everybody to flip to the same page, um, checking people's hall passes, going to lunch, waiting for the bus, rushing at the bell. It's just, there's a whole bunch of just logistics around school that's just dead time. And that's if you're in, like, we are now. Now we're in a school district that is basically all English speakers. Previously, we were in a school district that was very bilingual. There was a lot of, I would say, more Spanish speaking kids than English. And that creates a whole nother logistical problem. That's a whole nother time use to have to say everything twice. To try to make one cohesive classroom out of two different language groups. It's like trying to carry handfuls of water. It's just not going to happen well. So, um, so yeah, you can do the schoolwork in less time than you'll think. I know a lot of parents who haven't been around homeschooling. It's a very daunting task. I get it, and it rightly so. If you've never homeschooled, if you're thinking about it, if you're on the fence, it is a big responsibility. That said, I would encourage people to, if you at all curious about it, take the chance, roll the dice. It may not work for you. It doesn't work for everybody. Some people's kids, no, I'm not trying to shit talk kids, but some people, whether it's the parents or the kids, whatever, sometimes the dynamics work out that a parent just has a hard time managing a kid. It's not going to work for every. It's not going to work for every parent. It's not going to work for every kid. Um, but I would encourage people to find out if you're curious about it. I would encourage you to figure out if you're one of the people it does work for. It does work for most people. Most people can do it, and are successful, from what I've been around, which is plenty. Um, Even if you fail, I think that it will be a valuable learning experience, not only for you but also for your kid, and they'll learn important life lessons like then, like there. Even if they don't learn, whatever fake history they're getting fed, spoon fed. Even if they don't learn how to be trans communists, which is what they learn now, they will learn through observation to take risks, to try things, and maybe take risks was the wrong, since I'm trying to sell the idea, take risks might not be the most appealing sounding way of phrasing things. I know a lot of people would probably go, risk, the word risk probably makes a lot of people cringe, and more risk taking isn't great for everybody. I could probably do with less risk taking. I'm a risk taking personality, and my whole life I've taken too many risks. But that is not the problem that I see in 85% of people around me. And I'm 35. I'm from a more risk comfortable generation than our kids are. These kids don't want to, everything is a risk. Having your feelings hurt is a risk. So I think that the odds are that your kid could learn to take more risks, not fewer. Just the numbers are in that favor. They'll learn to take risks. They'll learn to go for things that matter to them, to try things. The they'll see you go through sort of a live risk reward exercise. I've said in previous videos or live streams, sort of here and there, that basically all the decisions I make, I do. It's not even conscious anymore. It's sort of subconscious, but it's like a risk reward analysis. What are the risks? What are the rewards? What are the likelihoods of each outcome, right? And the perfect example is of, or one that I like to use is of seeing a pretty girl and going to talk to her, right? What's the risk? She'll shut you down. What's the reward? That's the potential risk. What's the potential reward? Well, who knows? It starts at, we hold hands for an afternoon, I suppose, and it goes up to, we're married for the rest of our lives. So there's basically one risk and infinite rewards. Let's say it's two. Let's say there's two risks. One, she rejects you. Two, she rejects you and her boyfriend, who you didn't know was there, whoops your ass. Okay, you got two risks. You got whole scale of rewards, potential rewards, and what are the odds of each one happening? You're probably not going to get your ass beat. Maybe you'll get rejected. I don't know. Everybody's odds are different there, but the fallout from rejection is, in my hypothetical situation, you get told no, and you never see her again, and it doesn't matter. Which is the same exact outcome as if you didn't approach the girl, right? So your opportunity cost of not doing anything because you're too scared has the exact same outcome as basically your worst scenario. It's not the worst conceivable one, but it's the worst likely one. Whereas your upside is, hell, there's a lot more upside. Once you start doing that sort of thought process with things, it's like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I be stupid to waste this opportunity to go talk to a pretty chick? Who knows what could come of it? Maybe nothing could come of it. Maybe nothing will come of it, but that's certainly what's going to happen if I don't, right? So that's just a little example of a risk-reward analysis I go through with most decisions that I make. I won't say all of them because sometimes I can be kind of impulsive. Sometimes I just want something, and that's all that there is to think about. But they'll get to see you go through that. There's value in failures, I guess is what I'm kind of trying to say. So what's the risk? The risk is that you fail at homeschooling and you have to put the kid back in school where they're at, right? It's just the same situation as talking to a pretty girl or not that you see somewhere. Your worst likely scenario is exactly the same as your status quo. Your best case outcome, there's a whole gamut of things that are better. If you have the same or similar beliefs that I do, that kids aren't learning good stuff at school, you may not be as extreme as me. You may not think they're learning bad things like I do. I think a lot of the stuff they're learning is bad. But I think everybody can admit that what they are learning is inadequate. I mean, it's objectively true. You can look at metrics. We're having high school graduates who can't fucking read. So yeah, I'd encourage people to give it a shot. There are good. The first thing I would do is I'd get on Facebook and I'd search local homeschooling groups. There are networks of homeschooling parents, and they like to try to get kids together. Keep a little bit of a social dynamic there. Don't think that, don't measure successes. You don't have to think that you're going to do this through the rest of their schooling career, I would actually probably recommend for most kids not doing it through high school, just because that's sort of an important social transition age. Um, it does work for a lot of kids, but socialization is going to be the hardest thing. Kids need to be around other kids. Unfortunately, kids are at school. So when I was a kid, I was homeschooled through grade school, and partially for the same reason. My mom has similar views on the education system that I do, but also, unlike my daughter, I grew up in a very bad school district. It was the Kansas City, Missouri school system was not accredited until just recently. It just got accredited. So it was garbage public schools. There are a lot. Kansas City is very Irish Catholic. There's a lot of Catholic schools around, but they all had waiting lists. We're not Catholic, so we weren't members of any parish. So we were on a waiting list perpetually, right? Like, because everybody in the parish gets priority over everybody not in the parish. So it's not like you've got a set spot in line. It's like you got a set spot in line until some other parish member's kid wants to come in. Then they jump you. So anyways, I was homeschooled. My mom was really good about keeping me and my siblings socialized. I was involved in sports and scouts and, basically any extracurricular activity they could find for me. And then aside from that, I had a very active friend life in the neighborhood. Of course, I was fairly bold and outgoing kid, and we also didn't have cell phones, so kids were actually outside doing shit. Like when I was a kid, if you just went and rode your bike around, eventually somebody would throw a football at you and say, "Hey, kid, we need another man," which is actually how I met, like to this day, some of my best friends. They were in the neighborhood and they were a man down, a few blocks over. I hadn't met them before, but I was riding by and they were a man short. I don't know how much that happens anymore, but yeah, socialization is the most important thing, especially if you're going to be homeschooling for a longer period of time. We've all probably seen or know of the sort of the kids who are homeschooled for religious reasons, right? And they're homeschooled and sort of isolated in their little cocoon until adulthood, and they've got weird social skills. Just watch out for that. But you have to be consistently isolated for a long period of time to kind of end up like that. Socialization, teach them important shit. The school curriculums aren't important. They're not even, half of it's bullshit. Half of it's political. Half of it's, teaching garbage like social and cultural junk. Sort of introspective, social, emotional, how am I feeling sort of stuff. Kids don't need to be so self-focused. It's to be sort of always focusing on yourself. How am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I thinking about? What do I like? What's my gender? It's not healthy. Get out in the world. Go explore things. Go learn things. Don't just sit around and obsess about yourself. When my daughter was homeschooled, Katie, my girlfriend, we've been together for a long time. She's basically like my daughter's mom. She homeschooled her. She did all the teaching. Pretty traditional gender role sort of split, right? She stayed home with the kid. I went to work. But I did do one school assignment, and it was, I don't know where it is, but it was to read one book. It was Propaganda, and I sent an audio book so that she could listen to it. It was to read Propaganda by Oh my God, Bernays, and it was a little bit, a little bit of a dry read for whatever. I don't remember what grade she was in. It was probably like fourth. Probably not fourth grade reading material. Didn't get through the whole thing. Got through enough of it to kind of get the point, which is fine for me. That was the important thing. But you can do things like that. You can show them things that you think are valuable or worth knowing. And that's great. I mean, that's great because, like I said, if you don't know that your kids are learning unimportant bullshit at school, then you're not paying attention. You need to look through their well, it's not even a backpack anymore. They don't hardly have paperwork at all. It's all school supplied laptops with Microsoft software. That's another fucking fantastic feature of public schools is they have these private companies, Microsoft, Google, supplying this tech that catalogs and profiles your kid so that by the time they enter the adult world, guess what? These companies have profiles of your kid. They know how about them. They know how to market to them. They know how smart they are, how dumb they are, what they're likely to achieve, how cooperative they are, how compliant they are with the social agenda. It's very Orwellian. If you feel like going down that rabbit hole, look up Gaggle, Gaggle. It's a Google subsidiary that is on all the school supplied laptops, and it monitors everything for just like they're always using the excuse that well, we want to monitor for threats of suicide. Suicide is their excuse for fucking everything. We want to make sure nobody's committing suicide. Just teach English, okay? Just teach people to read and write English, and fuck off. How about that? So, I hope that answers the question. Better late than never. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know if you have any thoughts in the comments section below. I know that a lot of people like to think schools are all great. We love our school. We're so happy with our school. Our school's perfect. Our school teaches our kid lots of stuff. Our teachers don't have any political agenda, but it's a government institution. It is inherently political. It can't not be political. And most of that stuff isn't coming from your local schools. Most of the junk in the curriculum is coming from core, the core standards or whatever the national education platform. It's atrocious, but yeah, you've got families being divided, and the kids are going off for 18 years from 8 to 3 at least, being just indoctrinated into the culture that you can form your own opinion about culture right now, but I'm not particularly impressed by it. And academic standards are dropping. Kids aren't learning what they're supposed to. They've got social emotional learning now going on in schools, which is what's psychology, but it's not teaching kids psychology so that they can use it. It's using psychology, it's practicing therapy without a license, basically. My mom has the same opinion that I do, which is that school is basically an oppression system that kind of squashes and forms kids, right? Like when you've got a little kid, they're all potential. And if you want to create a compliant, cooperative, agreeable, rule following, task completing human, right? If you want to form a person into a mold that does the 8 to 5 job that they hate and does a 45-minute commute each way and saves for retirement and then loses all their retirement savings in the when their 401k crashes because the market went down. If you want this all-American NPC, which they do. The powers that be definitely do want that. You've got to form them into that before they're 7, really. But it's a training process. And my mom recognized, as well as I do, that school is the main tool of the training.